The heat inside the territorial land office was meaner than the noon sun outside. Sarah Coulter stood at the clerk's desk, homestead papers trembling in her hands. Dust coated her Sunday dress. Her 4 children pressed against her skirts, barefoot on the plank floor. Marcus Thornwell stood beside the clerk, smirking. His boots were polished. His deed looked official. The clerk's stamp came down hard. Claim invalid, fraud suspected. Sarah's breath stopped. What? This man filed first, ma'am. 1883, your papers don't match the registry. Her oldest, Tom, tried to shield his sisters as the deputy moved toward them. The children started crying. The sound filled the room. Townspeople on the benches watched in silence. The clerk looked up. Where will you go, Mrs. Coulter? Sarah's mouth opened. No words came. In the back row, old Silas Webb shook his head. He muttered something about stakes and boundaries. Sarah's eyes caught his, just for a moment. Then the deputy's hand was on her elbow, guiding her toward the door. The walk was 5 miles. Sarah counted her steps for the first 1,000, then stopped. The heat pressed down like a hand on her neck. Alkali dust coated her tongue. The children stumbled behind her, silent now. They'd cried themselves out in the first mile. Tom carried Mary. The baby's head lolled against his shoulder. The twin girls, Emma and Jane, held each other's hands. Their bare feet left prints in the dust. Sarah kept moving. 1 foot, then the other, the sun beat on her back. When the homestead came into view, the children collapsed in the shade of the broken windmill. The structure squeaked in the wind, squeak, 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 the same sound it had made the day her husband fell. She'd heard it from the cabin, heard it stop. Then heard him hit the ground. That was 8 months ago. The forge stood cold beside the well. Faint iron smell still hung in the air when the wind shifted. Her husband's last horseshoe sat on the anvil, half-shaped. She'd left it there. Couldn't bear to move it. Tom looked up at her. His face was red from sun and effort. Mama? Rest, she said. Drink what's left in the canteen. She stared at the land. Her husband had filed the claim in 1877. 8 years of work, breaking ground, digging the well, building the windmill, planting, surviving. The twins shared the last swallow of water between them. Emma's hand shook as she passed the canteen to Jane. Sarah's throat burned. She swallowed dust. Tom stood suddenly. His body went rigid. Mama. She turned. 3 men on horseback rode through the sage. They weren't hurrying, didn't need to. They owned the moment and they knew it. Tom's voice came out small. Mama, there's men on our land. The foreman's name was Hicks. Sarah had seen him in town. He worked for Thornwell, did the jobs that needed doing when law wouldn't reach. He swung down from his horse and pulled a post-hole digger from his saddle. The metal rang against stone as he started work. The 2 other men unloaded fence posts from a pack mule. Fresh-cut cedar, the smell was sharp in the dry air. Tom moved in front of his sisters, his fists clenched. Hicks drove the digger into the earth. Once, twice, 3 times, then he straightened and looked at Sarah. Mrs. Coulter. He touched his hat brim. Mockery, not courtesy. Mr. Thornwell sends his regards. Sarah's voice came out steady. This is my land. Was your land. Hicks pulled a paper from his vest. Got 30 days to clear out, legal and proper. The judge heard the case, ruled in Mr. Thornwell's favor. You were there. Tom stepped forward. That ain't right. My pa filed this claim. Hicks looked at the boy. Your pa's dead. Dead men don't hold property. Sarah's hand shot out and gripped Tom's shoulder, hard. The boy's muscles trembled under her fingers, but he stayed still. Hicks drove another post. The hammer came down in steady rhythm, wood on wood. The sound carried across the empty land. One of the hired men dropped a coil of rope at Sarah's feet, rough hemp, new, the kind used for fencing. Thornwell's being generous, Hicks said. 30 days. Most wouldn't give you that. He moved to mark the next corner. His boot scraped across the ground. Sarah heard it, metal on metal, just for a second. Then his boot pressed down and the sound stopped. She stared at that spot. Her husband's surveyor stakes, iron, stamped with his initials. Buried now under 8 years of dust and time. But there. She knew they were there. Hicks hammered another post. Sweat darkened his shirt. The smell of tobacco drifted from him when he passed close. Tom's hand found hers, small and sweaty and shaking. The men worked for another hour, drove 6 posts, strung rope between them, created a boundary that cut across land her husband had walked every morning. When they finished, Hicks mounted up. 30 days, Mrs. Coulter. After that, we come back with the sheriff. And they rode away. The dust from their horses hung in the air long after they disappeared. Sarah stood at the spot where Hicks's boot had scraped. She knelt, touched the ground, felt nothing but hard earth and the heat rising from it. Tom crouched beside her. What are you doing? Your father's stakes are here, under the dirt. How do you know? I heard it. Metal on metal. The boy looked at her, old beyond his years. Even if they're there, how do we prove it? Sarah had no answer. Sarah walked into town the next morning with Mary on her hip and the twins trailing behind. Tom stayed at the homestead. Someone had to watch it. The mercantile bell chimed when she pushed through the door. Dutch looked up from his ledger. His expression changed when he saw her. Mrs. Coulter. Need supplies on credit. Flour, beans, balt. Dutch's hand moved to close the ledger. Can't do that. I'll pay in a month. You said that last month. Sarah shifted Mary's weight. The baby was getting heavy. Or Sarah was getting weaker. Hard to tell which. Dutch, my children haven't eaten in 2 days. The shopkeeper's jaw worked. Behind him, flour sacks sat stacked to the ceiling. The smell of them filled the air. Leather goods hung on hooks. Everything she needed and couldn't touch. Word is, your land claim got struck down, Dutch said. That true? It's my land. Judge says different. He opened a drawer, pulled out 3 pennies, set them on the counter. The coins clinked against the smooth wood. That's what you got credit for, 3 cents worth. Sarah stared at the pennies. They wouldn't buy a pound of flour. The twins pressed against her skirts. Emma's stomach growled loud enough to hear across the room. Dutch looked away. Sarah took the pennies and left. The banker's office was worse. Ford didn't even let her sit down. Bridge loan? He laughed. The sound echoed off the walls. On what collateral, Mrs. Coulter? The homestead. You don't own the homestead. Thornwell does. That claim is fraudulent. Tell it to the judge. Ford counted coins for another customer. The metallic sound filled the silence. You got nothing, ma'am. No land, no husband, no prospects. Bank don't loan on hope. Sarah's hands tightened on Mary. The baby whimpered. At the church, the deacon's wife met her on the steps. Beeswax candles burned inside. The smell drifted through the open door, sweet and mocking. Mrs. Coulter, the Reverend's busy. I need help. The church helps those who help themselves. The woman's eyes flicked to Sarah's dress. Dust-stained, mended 4 times. Perhaps if you'd been more provident when your husband was alive. Sarah turned and walked away before she said something that would condemn her soul. The twins followed without a word. The well rope had been cut clean. Tom stood staring down into darkness, the severed end in his hands. Mama, his voice cracked. Someone cut it. Sarah moved to the well's edge, looked down. The bucket lay far below. She could hear water, faint and mocking. 20 feet down and no way to reach it. The well stones were hot under her palms, rough. The sun had baked them all day. Tom and the twins started digging in the dirt near the sage, looking for roots, anything edible. Their fingers came up empty, just dust and more dust. The children hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. 3 biscuits, split 4 ways. Before that, nothing for a day. Mary cried weakly in Sarah's arms. The sound was wrong. Too quiet, too tired. Tom looked up from his digging, dirt under his fingernails, cracked lips. Mama, what do we do? Sarah had no answer. In the distance, hoofbeats approached, steady, unhurried. Someone was coming. The rider came with 2 pack horses, water barrels lashed to the saddles. Sarah saw them, and her throat went dry with want. The man dismounted. 50-something, weathered face. Good clothes, but worn from use, not for show. He removed his hat. Mrs. Coulter. She pulled Tom behind her, kept Mary tight against her chest. The twins pressed into her skirts. Who are you? James Kincaid. He gestured to the barrels. Water sloshed inside them. The sound made Emma whimper. Brought water. Food, too. The children's eyes fixed on the barrels. Tom started forward. Sarah's hand shot out and stopped him. We don't take charity. Kincaid's foreman, a quiet man who'd stayed mounted, pulled canvas-wrapped packages from the second horse. The smell hit Sarah. Salt pork, bread. Her stomach clenched so hard it hurt. The twins moved toward the food. Sarah blocked them with her body. From men who want something, she finished. Kincaid studied her, his horse-stamped, leather saddle creaking. Clean shirt, not Sunday clean, work clean. The difference mattered. Ma'am, I knew your husband. Sarah's grip on Mary tightened. John's been dead 8 months. I know. Kincaid looked past her to the broken windmill. The squeaking had stopped. No wind. I'm sorry for it. Tom pushed against Sarah's restraining hand. The boy's whole body trembled. Hunger or anger or both. This ain't charity, Kincaid said. What is it then? He stepped closer, not threatening, careful, like approaching a wounded animal. It's a debt, one I should have paid years ago. Sarah's eyes narrowed. I don't know you. Your husband knew me. Kincaid nodded to his foreman. The man started unloading water, filled a tin cup, held it out. The twins broke. They couldn't help it. They ran to the cup, grabbed it with 4 small hands, drank like they'd never tasted water before. It spilled down their chins. They fought over it, Gentle fighting, sister fighting, desperate. Sarah's resolve cracked. She sagged. Kincaid's foreman filled another cup, brought it to her. Ma'am. The water was cold. She could smell it, feel the coolness radiating from the tin. She wanted it more than she'd wanted anything in her life. Why? Her voice broke on the word. Kincaid looked at her, really looked. Because somebody should have done it sooner. The children ate like starved animals. Tom tried to be slow, to be mannered, but his hands shook too much. He shoved salt pork in his mouth. Grease ran down his chin. The foreman had built a fire, heated beans in a pot. The smell of food made Sarah dizzy. Kincaid sat on the wellstones, hat in his hands. Drought of 79. You remember it? Sarah nodded. She remembered. John coming home with the wagon empty, saying he'd given their water barrels to a neighbor. She'd been angry. They'd had barely enough for themselves. Your husband gave me his last water, Kincaid said. My breeding cattle were dying, worth $30,000 in today's market. John had maybe $40 worth of water in those barrels, but he gave it. Wouldn't take payment. Tom looked up from his food, listening. I tried to pay him, Kincaid continued. Offered cash, offered cattle. He said no. Said neighbors don't charge for water. Sarah's throat tightened. That sounded like John. My cattle lived. Built my whole operation on those animals. Kincaid's voice was quiet. I owe that man everything. He's dead? I know. So I pay the debt to his family. Mary reached from Sarah's arms toward Kincaid. The baby's small hand opened and closed, wanting, trusting. Sarah pulled her back. What do you want in return? Kincaid stood, looked at the children, at their hollow faces starting to fill with hope, at Tom's defensive posture, at the twins sharing a piece of bread like it was gold. To see those children eat. He turned to Sarah, and to prove Thornwell's a thief. Kincaid's ranch house was stone, spring-fed, water trickled through irrigation channels outside. The sound of it was alien to Sarah, water flowing freely, not rationed, not fought over. The children stood in the doorway, afraid to enter. Mrs. Chin, the housekeeper, came from the kitchen. She was small, Chinese, with gray in her black hair. She looked at the children, and her face softened. They need baths, she said. Not judgment. Fact. Sarah nodded. She couldn't speak. Mrs. Chin led the twins away. Their bare feet made no sound on the cool stone floors. The touch of that coolness after weeks of burning earth made Emma gasp. Kincaid showed Tom to a room with 2 beds, real beds, quilts, pillows. Tom stood frozen. Where do we sleep? Here. All of us? You and your sisters. Your mother and the baby get the room next door. Tom touched the quilt. His fingers left dirt marks on the fabric. He pulled his hand back like he'd been burned. It's all right, Kincaid said. The boy's eyes filled. He turned away, shoulders shaking. Sarah heard it from the hallway, heard her son finally break. That evening, they ate at a real table. Grilled beef, beans, bread with butter. The smell of food was almost too much. Sarah felt sick and starving at the same time. The children ate slowly now. Their stomachs couldn't handle much yet. Mrs. Chen sat beside Sarah. The woman couldn't read. Sarah had noticed her struggling with a recipe earlier, pretending to understand the words. I could teach you, Sarah said quietly, if you'd like. Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. You would do this? You're feeding my children. It's the least I can do. They started that night, Sarah using a book of hymns, pointing to words, Mrs. Chen repeating them softly. The sound of learning filled the stone hallway. Kincaid watched from the doorway, said nothing, but something in his expression changed. The town talked. Of course the town talked. Sarah heard it 3 days later when Kincaid took her to the mercantile for supplies. Whispers from the women outside the church. Widow Coulter living at Kincaid's ranch. A bachelor's home. Those poor children, exposed to such impropriety. She's got her hooks in him good. Sarah's spine stiffened. She kept walking. Inside the mercantile, Dutch's wife turned her back. Wouldn't speak. Wouldn't acknowledge Sarah's presence. Kincaid's credit was good. Dutch filled the order without question. But his eyes slid away from Sarah's face. The shame felt like a physical thing, heavy, suffocating. That evening, she sat on Kincaid's porch with Mary sleeping in her arms. The children laughed somewhere inside the house, first laughter she'd heard from them in months. The sound of it broke something in her chest. Hoofbeats approached through the dusk. Sarah's stomach dropped before she even saw who it was. Deputy Pierce dismounted slowly. He held papers in his hand, legal papers. The crackle of them carried on the evening air. Kincaid came out of the house. His boots were deliberate on the stone. He took the papers without a word. Sarah watched his jaw tighten as he read. What is it? She asked. Pierce shifted, spurs jingling. The smell of leather and horse sweat drifted from him. I'm sorry, ma'am. I got orders. Kincaid's hands crushed the paper. 30 days down to 3. Thornwell arrived at dawn. He came with Hicks and 2 other men, came to Kincaid's ranch like he owned it. Tom was in the yard practicing with a rope, learning from Kincaid's foreman. The boy saw Thornwell, and his whole body went rigid. Sarah came out of the house, Kincaid beside her. Thornwell sat his horse like a king. His cologne was wrong here. Out of place. City smell in ranch country. Kincaid. Thornwell touched his hat brim. Didn't know you were in the charity business. State your business, Marcus. Thornwell pulled a paper from his vest. Railroad's buying water rights. Need clear title by September 1st. Can't wait 30 days for her to clear out. He looked at Sarah. 3 days, Mrs. Coulter, then the sheriff removes you by force. Tom stepped forward. You're a liar. You stole our land. Hicks swung down from his horse fast. Before anyone could react, his hand shot out and caught Tom across the mouth. The crack of it echoed off the stone house. Tom staggered. Blood welled on his lip, dripped onto the stone courtyard. Sarah screamed and lunged for her son. Kincaid moved, not fast, slow, deliberate. His boots made no sound on the stone. He walked toward Hicks with his hands loose at his sides. The foreman saw his face and backed up. Thornwell laughed. Careful, Kincaid. You want to play white knight? You'll lose everything, reputation, business, standing, all for a woman who's already ruined. Sarah caught Tom. Her hands came away red with his blood. The copper smell of it mixed with her son's tears. Kincaid stopped in front of Hicks. The silence stretched. Then Kincaid's voice came out, quiet, deadly. That was a mistake, Thornwell, a bad one. That night, Sarah unpacked her few belongings in the room Kincaid had given her. The children were asleep. Tom, with a split lip and a cold cloth. The twins curled together in one bed. Mary, in a drawer lined with blankets. Sarah's possessions fit in a single canvas bag. 2 dresses, a tin cup, a photograph of John in a cracked frame, and his Bible. The leather was worn smooth. She'd carried it from the homestead because it was the only thing of his she couldn't leave behind. She opened it. The spine cracked. The smell of old paper and ink rose up. Loose pages fell out, fluttered to the stone floor. Sarah knelt and picked them up. Her hands started shaking before she understood why. John's handwriting, surveyor's notes, measurements in chains and rods, boundary markers, a rough sketch map with X marks showing stake locations. At the bottom of one page, a notation, filed with J. Kincaid, Aug. 12, 1877. Sarah's vision blurred. She pressed the papers to her chest. John's voice from the grave, speaking truth. A knock at the door. Kincaid stood in the hallway. Lamplight from his room spilled out behind him. Couldn't sleep either, he said. Sarah held out the pages. Her throat was too tight for words. Kincaid took them, moved to the lamp, read in silence. His breathing changed, got faster. He looked up at her. This proves the filing date. I know. And the stakes. He marked where they are. Sarah nodded. But they're buried now, 8 years of dust. Kincaid studied the map. His finger traced the boundary lines. If we can find those stakes, the sentence hung unfinished between them, hope and possibility and the terrible weight of if. Morning came hard. Kincaid rode to town before the sun cleared the horizon. Sarah waited on the porch, Mary in her arms, watching dust rise from his horse. He returned 3 hours later with his foreman Cole trailing behind. Sent a telegram, Kincaid said. To Judge Harlan, Territorial Circuit. He owes me a favor from way back. Will he come? He'll come. Kincaid dismounted, handed his reins to Cole. But we need Silas Webb, the surveyor. He walked that boundary with your husband. His testimony carries weight. Sarah's stomach clenched. Thornwell will threaten him. Probably. He's an old man. What if... Kincaid turned to her. Silas Webb don't scare easy. Old honor. The kind that doesn't bend. Cole cleared his throat. Both of them looked at him. The foreman shifted. Dust coated his clothes from the ride. The smell of horse and sweat drifted from him. Boss, there's talk in town. There's always talk. This is different. Cole's eyes flicked to Sarah, then away. Thornwell's spreading it around. Says you're using the widow for... favors. Says her claim's worthless and you're a fool for defending it. Kincaid's jaw tightened. Let him talk. He's saying worse about her. Sarah felt heat climb her neck. The shame was physical, burning. Let him, Kincaid said again, quieter now, dangerous. Cole nodded and led the horses toward the barn. The jingle of bridles faded into the morning. Sarah couldn't look at Kincaid. Maybe I should leave. Go somewhere else. You've already lost too much for me. Lost what? A reputation I never cared about? Kincaid stepped closer. Everything I'm losing was empty anyway. She met his eyes then. Saw something there she didn't have words for. Something that made her chest ache. Those stakes are real, he said. The truth is real. Let them talk. We'll answer with iron and maps and the law. Sarah held Mary tighter. The baby stirred but didn't wake. In the distance, a rider approached, moving fast, dust trailing behind like smoke. The rider was Deputy Pierce. He dismounted hard. His face was gray. The smell of whiskey drifted from him, though it was barely past noon. He held papers in his hand. Didn't meet Sarah's eyes when he gave them to Kincaid. 3 days, Pierce said. Sheriff's orders. Kincaid read in silence. Sarah watched his knuckles go white on the paper. Tom came out of the house. The boy's lip was swollen, purple bruise spreading across his jaw. He looked at Pierce with old eyes. You gonna help a bad man hurt my mama? Tom's voice was clear, young, accusing. Pierce flinched. Boy. That's what you're doing, helping him. The deputy's hand went to his badge, touched it, like he'd forgotten what it meant. I got orders, Pierce said, but his voice cracked. From Thornwell, Kincaid said. Not a question. Pierce's jaw worked. He looked at Tom, at Sarah, at the papers in Kincaid's hand. Something broke in his expression. He owns my mortgage, Pierce said quietly. The bank, the land, all of it. He said if I don't enforce the eviction, he'll call the note. My wife, my kids, we'll lose everything. Sarah felt her anger shift. Not gone, just complicated. So, you'll take ours instead, she said. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Sorry, don't feed children. Pierce mounted up, his horse stamped, leather creaking. For what it's worth, I know it ain't right. I know Thornwell's lying. Then do something, Tom said. The deputy looked at the boy. No answer came. He turned his horse and rode away, spurs jingling. The sound faded into the heat. Sarah's hands shook. Even the law's bought. Kincaid folded the papers. Careful, deliberate. Then we go higher than territorial law. Tom looked up at him. How? Before Kincaid could answer, another rider appeared on the horizon, this one moving slow, patient. Silas Webb sat his horse like he'd been born in the saddle. 70 years old and straight as a fence post. He carried a leather case across his lap. He dismounted with a surveyor's precision, every movement measured. Kincaid, Webb nodded, then to Sarah. Mrs. Coulter. Mr. Webb. The old man pulled a rolled map from his case. The paper was brown with age. Official seals stamped in the corners. He unfolded it on Kincaid's porch rail. The crackle of it was loud in the quiet. Territorial Survey Map, 1877. Webb's gnarled finger traced boundary lines. I walked every inch of this territory that year, including your husband's claim, Mrs. Coulter. Sarah moved closer, saw John's name written in faded ink, his signature. The date, August 12, 1807. Thornwell's deed says 1883, Webb continued. He pulled another paper from his case. The forged deed. Set it beside the original map. But look at this signature. He pointed to the land clerk's name. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. Clerk's name is Horace Mitchell. Had a stroke in 1884. His handwriting changed after. Got tremors. Webb's voice was matter-of-fact. A surveyor reading evidence like he read land. This signature matches his post-stroke hand, not his 1883 hand. Kincaid leaned in. You're saying, I'm saying this deed was signed after 1884 and backdated to 1883. Webb looked at Sarah. It's a forgery. I can prove it. Sarah's heart hammered. How? Handwriting samples, county records, medical testimony about the stroke. Webb rolled the maps carefully, precise. And one more thing. He pulled a surveyor's chain from his saddle. The iron links clinked together. The sound was clean, true. We walk the boundary at dawn. Old ritual. Territorial law requires it for disputed claims. If your husband's stakes are where you say they are, the claim's valid. Paper or no paper? Tom stepped forward. What if we can't find them? Webb looked at the boy. Then we lose. The silence stretched. Sarah felt the weight of it. Everything balanced on iron stakes buried under 8 years of dust. Judge Harlan will witness it, Kincaid said. Makes it official. Webb nodded. Dawn tomorrow. Bring shovels. He mounted his horse, started to leave, then stopped, turned back. Mrs. Coulter, your husband was a good man, honest. When he told me he'd driven those stakes, I believed him. Still do. The old surveyor's eyes were hard, clear. Iron don't lie, he rode away. The chain clinked with his horse's rhythm. Sarah looked at Kincaid. You ready to dig for your husband's stakes? He'd said in the house last night. Now she answered. Yes. Sarah went to town the next morning. Kincaid had offered to go for her, but she refused. She wouldn't hide. She needed thread for mending. The children's clothes were falling apart. She had Kincaid's credit now, but using it felt like wearing someone else's skin. The mercantile bell chimed. Dutch looked up. 3 women stood at the fabric counter. Mrs. Thornwell, the banker's wife. The deacon's wife. They stopped talking when Sarah entered. The silence was worse than whispers. Sarah moved to the thread display. Her fingers touched the spools, smooth wood, different colors wound tight. Behind her, Mrs. Thornwell's voice carried. Not quite a whisper, meant to be heard. Poor woman, using those children to trap a rich man. Sarah's hand froze. Got her hooks and Kincaid good, the banker's wife added. Living in his house, unmarried, shameful. The deacon's wife made a tisking sound. Those poor children, exposed to such sin. Sarah turned, slowly, the thread spool still in her hand. Something you want to say to my face? The women looked at each other. Mrs. Thornwell lifted her chin. Just stating facts, Mrs. Coulter. Facts. Sarah's voice was quiet, deadly. You want facts? My husband was worth 10 of your husbands. He built that claim with his own hands. Died trying to keep it running. And when I came to this town begging for help, every one of you turned your backs. The deacon's wife flushed. The church helps those who... The church does nothing but judge. Sarah stepped closer. The smell of the women's perfume was thick, cloying. You let my children starve. You watched us lose everything. And now you stand here whispering about my morals? Mrs. Thornwell's face went pale. How dare you? I don't need to trap anyone, Sarah said. And I sure as hell don't need your approval. She paid for the thread, coins clinking on the counter, left without another word. Outside, her hands shook, the heat pressed down, dust coated her throat. Tom waited by the wagon. He'd heard it all through the open door. Mama? Sarah climbed up, took the reins. We're going back. She found Kincaid on the porch that evening. The children were inside with Mrs. Chen, learning to make dumplings. Their laughter drifted through the open windows. Sarah sat beside him. The stone was cool under her. Evening coming on. First relief from the heat. Maybe I should leave, she said. Kincaid looked at her. We talked about this. No, I know what we talked about, but I'm hearing what they're saying. She met his eyes. You're losing everything for me. Your reputation. Your standing? The town can think whatever it wants. It matters, James. First time she'd used his given name, it felt strange on her tongue. Intimate. You've built a life here. I can't let you destroy it. He was quiet for a long time. The sound of irrigation water trickling filled the silence. Cattle lowing in the distance. The smell of mesquite smoke from Mrs. Chen's kitchen. You know what I had before you knocked on my door? Kincaid said finally. Money, land, cattle, an empty house. He looked at the windows, at the children's silhouettes moving inside. Everything I'm losing was empty anyway. Sarah's throat tightened. Tomorrow we dig, he said. We find those stakes, we prove the truth, the rest... He shrugged. Let it burn. Hoofbeats approached. Different rhythm, official. Sarah recognized it before she saw the rider. Judge Harlan dismounted at the porch steps. He was 60, graybeard, eyes that had seen too much and still chose to look. He tipped his hat to Sarah. Mrs. Coulter, Your Honor. Mr. Kincaid says you've got a claim dispute needs settling. He pulled papers from his saddlebag. Legal documents. The crackle of them was sharp. Territorial law is clear on this. Surveyor walks the boundary at dawn. Claimant must prove original stakes within stated boundary. Sarah stood. They're there. If they're not, you lose everything. The judge's voice was matter-of-fact, not cruel, just honest. You understand? Sarah thought of John, his hands driving iron into hard ground, his careful measurements, his word given and kept. They're there, she said again. My husband never lied. Judge Harlan nodded. Dawn, then. Bring your shovels. Dawn broke pink and gold across the territory. The air was cool. First time in weeks the heat wasn't pressing down before the sun even rose. Silas Webb stood at the government benchmark. A brass marker set in stone. He uncoiled his surveyor's chain. The iron links clinked in the quiet. That sound carried weight. History. Truth measured in metal. Sarah stood beside him. Tom on her other side. The twins held Kincaid's hands. Mary slept in Mrs. Chen's arms back at the ranch. Judge Harlan sat his horse, observing, official. Thornwell was there too. Had to be. The law required it. Hicks stood beside him. Deputy Pierce waited at a distance, his hand nowhere near his gun, and townspeople, 20 of them, maybe more. Word had spread. They came to witness. Webb's voice cut through the morning. Territorial Survey, August 1877. Claimant. John Coulter. Boundary walk commences. He started measuring. The chain pulled tight. 16.5 feet. Then again. The rhythm was steady, ancient. Webb called out measurements. Kincaid wrote them down. They walked north from the benchmark. Sarah's heart hammered. Tom's hand found hers, sweaty, trembling. Webb stopped at a spot near a sage cluster. He looked at John's sketch map, then at the ground, then back at the map. "Here," he said. Sarah dropped to her knees, started digging. Her hands tore into the earth. Dirt packed under her fingernails. The smell of turned soil rose up. 8 years of dust and time. Tom dug beside her, his fingers bleeding. Neither of them cared. Metal on metal, the sound rang clear. Sarah's breath stopped. She dug faster, cleared earth away. Iron emerged. A surveyor's stake. 12 inches long, square, and stamped clear in the metal, JC 1877. Her vision blurred. She pulled the stake free, cold in her hands, heavy, real. Tom made a sound, half laugh, half sob. Silas Webb took the stake. Examined it. The sunrise light hit the stamped letters. He showed it to the judge. Judge Harlan dismounted, held the iron up to the light, tested the weight, the stamp. Looked at Thornwell. Thornwell's face drained of color. "Second corner," Webb said. They walked the boundary, found the second stake, then the third near the water source. All of them stamped, all of them true. The townspeople whispered. The sound built like wind through grass. Sarah held the first stake against her chest. John's work, John's truth. Rising from the ground to speak for him, Judge Harlan's voice carried, "Stakes are authentic. Placement matches 1877 territorial survey." He looked at Sarah. "Mrs. Coulter, you'll need additional proof of filing date." Sarah reached into her dress, pulled out the Bible, John's survey notes. "And one more thing. Their marriage certificate, dated June 1877. I witnessed his filing," she said. "August 12th, same day Mr. Kincaid filed his claim. 2 months after we married." Kincaid stepped forward. "I was there. I witnessed it too." The judge spread the papers on a flat rock. Thornwell's forged deed, John's Bible notes. The marriage certificate. Webb pointed to the clerk's signature on Thornwell's deed. "Horace Mitchell signed this, but look at the hand." Judge Harlan leaned close. His eyes narrowed. "Mitchell had a stroke in 1884, Webb continued. His writing changed, got shaky. This signature matches his post-stroke hand. But the deed says 1883. The judge pulled another paper from his saddlebag. County records. Mitchell's signature from before the stroke. Smooth, even. The difference was clear. "Forgery," Harlan said. Thornwell stepped forward. You can't prove." "Bring Mitchell," the judge said to Pierce. The deputy rode hard. Came back 30 minutes later with the clerk. The old man was pale, shaking. He looked at Thornwell, and something broke in his face. "Tell the truth, Horace," Judge Harlan said. Mitchell's voice came out weak. "He paid me $500 to backdate the deed. I needed the money. My wife was sick. He stopped. Tears ran down his weathered face. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Coulter. I'm sorry." Crowd's murmur grew louder. Judge Harlan's gavel came down on the rock. The crack of it silenced everything. "Mrs. Coulter's claim is valid. Original filing, 1877. Thornwell's deed is fraudulent." He looked at Pierce. "Deputy, arrest this man for forgery and fraud." Pierce stepped forward. For the first time, his hand was steady. He put irons on Thornwell's wrists. The handcuffs clicked. Final, true. Sarah stood there. Iron stake in her hands, her children around her, the sun warming her face. The townspeople watched. Silent witnesses. Private truth made public. The wagon carrying Thornwell left at noon, dust trailing behind it. Sarah watched until it disappeared. Judge Harlan voided the forged deed. Signed Sarah's claim with his own hand. The pen scratched on paper. Official, final. "The railroad contract," Harlan said. "Thornwell negotiated water rights purchase. $50,000. Contract transfers to you." Sarah's legs went weak. $50,000. You don't have to sell, but the offer stands. $8,000 for water access across your property. $8,000. More money than John had seen in his entire life. Tom gripped her hand. "Mama?" "We'll think on it," Sarah said. Dutch appeared at her elbow, hat in his hands. "Mrs. Coulter, I wanted to say about the credit. I should have." Sarah looked at him, the man who'd given her 3 cents when she needed flour. "I understand," she said. "Not forgiveness. Not yet, but understanding." Other townspeople came forward, some apologizing, some offering help they should have offered months ago, some just watching, measuring which way the wind blew now that Thornwell was gone. Mrs. Thornwell stood by her buggy, face pale. She met Sarah's eyes for just a moment, then looked away, climbed up, left town that afternoon. No one saw her again. Deputy Pierce approached Judge Harlan, pulled his badge from his vest, set it on the rock where the papers had been spread. "I'm done," Pierce said. "You were following orders," Harlan said. "Wrong orders." Pierce looked at Sarah, at Tom, with his split lip. I knew it was wrong and I did it anyway. That makes me guilty. The judge studied him. You testified truthfully today, brought Mitchell when asked. That counts for something. Not enough. Pierce turned to Sarah. Ma'am, I'm sorry. It don't fix nothing. But I'm sorry. Sarah nodded. The deputy walked to his horse, rode away, badge still sitting on the rock, glinting in the sun. 2 days later, Kincaid's men came to the homestead with tools, rope, new windmill gears, the parts John had been trying to fix when he fell. Sarah stood in the yard with her children, watched the men climb the windmill tower. Their boots rang on metal. The sound echoed across the empty land. Tom stayed close to her. Mama, we're really staying? We're really staying. Cole, Kincaid's foreman, directed the work. They pulled the broken gear, the one that had jammed. The one John had died trying to fix. It came free with a screech of metal. Sarah flinched. That sound. She'd heard it that day, before the silence, before the fall. Kincaid rode up at noon, dismounted, stood beside her. Didn't have to do this, Sarah said. I know. Why then? He looked at her. Because your husband started something good here. Seems right to finish it. The new gear went in. The men secured it. One of them called down. Trying it now. The windmill turned, slow at first, testing, then faster. The blades caught wind, metal clicked smooth, not squeaking, not broken, working. Water flowed into the irrigation channels. The sound of it was music. The twins ran to it, splashed their hands in, laughed. The sound rose up like prayer. Mary toddled after them, fell in the shallow water, came up sputtering and delighted. Tom looked up at Sarah. Papa would have liked this. He would have. Kincaid cleared his throat. Sarah. She turned. He looked nervous. This man who'd faced down Thornwell without flinching, who'd risked everything for her family. Nervous. Your husband saved my cattle, my whole operation. I told you that. He took his hat off, turned it in his hands. But these past weeks, you saved something else, gave me a family to fight for, a reason to... He stopped. Started again. I'm not asking for rescue. I'm asking for partnership. Sarah's throat tightened. Equals, he said. Partners, your land, my resources, your children, my... His voice cracked. Will you let me stay in your life? The children stopped playing, listening. Sarah looked at the windmill. Water flowing. John's work complete, his legacy safe. She looked at Kincaid. This man who'd honored a dead man's gift, who'd stood witness when everyone else turned away. On one condition, she said. Anything. We're equals. Partners, not rescue. Wouldn't have it any other way. He held out his hand. Sarah took it. Not a proposal. A partnership. Chosen. Earned. The windmill turned. Water sparkled in the sun. Children laughed. Silas Webb rode past on the road. Saw them standing there. Tipped his hat. Kept riding. The old surveyor's work was done. Reckon there's different kinds of debt a man can carry. Some's written in ledgers. Dollars and cents. Interest compounding. Some's carved deeper. James Kincaid carried the kind you can't pay with money. A neighbor gave him water when his cattle were dying. Asked nothing in return. Rode home with an empty wagon. That kind of debt don't clear with time. It waits. Sarah Coulter learned something about debt too. Learned the difference between owing and partnering. Between rescue and respect. Her husband left her iron stakes buried in hard ground. Truth waiting to be found. And when the time came, when the thieves came with their forged papers and bought lawmen, that truth rose up. Iron don't lie, old maps don't forget. And a surveyor's word, given in 1877, still carries weight in 1885 if the man's honor holds. The windmill turns now, same as it did before John Coulter climbed up to fix it that last time. Water flows through channels he dug, feeds earth he claimed, keeps children he loved alive. He's gone. But his work remains. Kincaid found what money can't buy. A family, a purpose, a reason to stand witness when the world turns cold. Found it by honoring a dead man's gift. Sometimes justice needs witnesses. Sometimes truth needs digging. Sometimes family chooses you as much as you choose it. The drought broke come fall. The garden grew. Those 4 children grew up knowing their father built something no thief could steal. Built it with iron stakes, and honest sweat, and a handshake given to a neighbor in need. That's the kind of inheritance that lasts. Water finds its level. Truth finds its witness. And some droughts, even the hard kind, remake you stronger than you were.